Either they love you, or they hate you, or they gon' judge you. It is what it is. 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 What up, world? It's your boy. We're here with Lingo Ink with another great episode of Open Minds. Today we're here to talk about Haitian voodoo, the misconceptions of Haitian spirituality. Throughout time, there's been a lot of misconceptions that has been put on the spirituality practices of voodoo, and we have at Dose NYC here, a plant-based blogger slash author. She's coming out with her work soon. Welcome her to the show, everybody. So, at Dose NYC, what do you do as far as a plant-based blogger? That's very important for everybody to eat healthy and change their lifestyle. So I applaud you and I thank you for adding us. So what do you do so people can follow you and your work?
Yes. So, after going vegan about or plant-based about 6 years ago, I wanted to share a lot of like recipes I was using just because a lot of friends and family were always asking how I was eating and what I was cooking, and they were looking for healthier ways to eat. So I wanted to start blogging and sharing my recipes. And then I continued on and started to sell food. I would appear at pop-up shops, vending events, and from there I met a client or a customer who actually wanted me to do meal preps. So I stopped going to the pop-up shops, and I started doing private uh, meal preps for clients. And then and even before that, I was doing like tutorials on YouTube. So I've like been basically like doing a whole bunch of things related to plant-based cooking. I'm just trying to get the word out there and just like spreading positive information in regards to plant-based eating. Um, and then I reached a point where I wanted to share my journey and my experience with others. So last year I started working on a book called Green Soul Rising, which I self-published earlier this year in spring. And I was able to self-publish, but I wanted to reach a larger market, and so I felt like I needed help in that area. So I looked for a Black publishing company, and I was able to find one that fit for me. That was a good fit for me, and so we're set to re-release my book by next fall, and it'll be on shelves next fall.
Dope! Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That's amazing. I'm happy for
Mhm.
you, and I can't wait for it to come out because plant-based diet is like the best diet anybody can have. Eating meats and
Totally.
cause inflammation and mucus in the body, and it weighs you down.
Mhm.
Everything spiritually, all types of
Yeah.
there's vibrations and all that. But I know everybody. It's hard to let go of the stuff they've been conditioned to for so long, and the seasoning and all that. But so I want to I spoke with you before and I brought you on the show because you have vast knowledge because you've done the work and you connected back to your roots of Haitian voodoo.
Mhm.
And through
Yeah.
time, through, especially Western civilization, they have deemed, Haitian voodoo as this type of sorcery and, but yet again, Haitian voodoo has freed Haitian people from bondage and tyranny. So,
Mhm.
there's negative connotations that's put on the spirituality itself. And, as far as the ancestors, this is the spirituality that they've done through time. And
Yeah.
yet, I know through time, Catholicism has made its way to islands and other places in the world, and people
Mhm.
have abandoned their own old traditional ways for, I guess, something else other than that.
Mhm.
But I want you to tell the people your story, your journey, because it shows a lot. You just wasn't uh, jumped into this or wasn't into it. Uh,
Yeah.
it took you to really do a lot of work and to really understand. And you've done that work, and this is what people need to hear, all the misconceptions, because a lot of fear that's put, like, to even look on it, to even practice anything, just talk about it,
Hmm.
anything. There's a lot of fear. So I want you to
Yeah.
explain your story, and then we're gonna get into Haitian voodoo and what it entails.
Yeah, so I grew up in a very traditional Christian Catholic household. I was sent to Catholic school for about 10 years. That's considered elementary school and middle school. I went to a public high school, but then I went back to a Catholic university for 4 years. And while I was, in the Catholic faith, I felt like I resonated with a lot of the general morals and the commandments and the beliefs. Um, there were always some things that I probably, if I were ever to be presented with a different notion of how the world worked, I probably would have looked at that and kind of compared and used logic. When I was younger, I remember watching a documentary called Zeitgeist, and that kind of compared Catholicism to astrology with the Son of God and the sun setting and the rising and the resurrection. And that analogy, I was super young, and I remember thinking like this actually makes more sense. But I kind of went back to religion, thinking like, oh, this is blasphemous. As I got older, and when I was in university, that's really when Catholicism was portrayed in a more philosophical sense. And even before I watched any documentary, like, that shed light on our Black history, true Black history, at that moment, I realized that I didn't really need to keep practicing this Catholic faith. I feel like I received a very basic moral foundation, and I could like just kind of move on. And not necessarily, I wasn't even really spiritual at that moment. It was more like, I know what my morals are, I know how to be a good person. I don't really need to be in the church and go to the church every Sunday and all of that. um Midway through university, I watched the Hidden Colors documentary, which I'm sure a lot of people have seen. And that uh, basically dove into different elements of Black history, the spiritual truth of our African spirituality is what hit me the most and made me really feel like I was duped. I'd been duped. So that's actually how I started becoming plant based. I wanted to be more spiritual and uncover more of the truths and the mysteries of African spirituality. And I found that
Really
following a plant
quickly,
based,
sorry to
yes,
interrupt. What
it's
part
okay.
did you feel duped about exactly that you found out?
I felt like a lot of what they were trying to convey to us was very scientific and less about, and they applied to things that were more scientific and more elemental and more um basically things that we go through in our bodies in the universe were personified, and they kind of made us worship these elements, and they made it very literal. And that's how I felt. And
Who do you
there is a narrative.
who do you
I'm
feel
sorry.
like is they is like the powers that be? Like, who do
The
you feel?
powers that be,
Okay.
because my opinion, there was a there's a way that I feel, especially when it came to the captivity of Black people. Um, there is this narrative that, right now we're suffering, but there's this greater place after death, and we must wait for that. And while we're being, oppressed by certain groups, and we had this conversation about certain groups, um Christ will forgive them, and there is no repentance on our end. I mean, there's no we need to forgive them, because and I think there's like a confusion perhaps, and not enough of a motivation to take action to do for self. I really felt like there was a lot of reliance on Jesus Christ as a figure to save us from this hell on
And
earth.
then
And
people
that was, yeah.
are have the savior complex.
Yes, it's like vicarious atonement. I looked at everything and I was like, wow, even if Christianity, we know that Christianity originated in Ethiopia, but it was taken, and certain elements were focused on, and then they changed the imagery and they changed the narrative sort of, and they did it in a way to oppress people. It was used as a tool of oppression, and that's really the problem I had with it. And I think that's why a lot of especially a lot of Black people, they sort of move away from the Christian church because of that. And as you move on into your spiritual journey, you sort of I think there's like a shunning of Christianity. And as you get older and you start to understand, like, the Bible can be used as a historical text, it can be used as a reference at some points, at some times, and you start like looking at certain things and looking past the actual, like, the personification of certain things, and you see, like, wow, like the Christ element is actually within us, like the rebirthing, like
Facts.
whenever we wake up, then every day that we wake up we have a chance to start over again. If we, like, for example, for myself, I was eating meat for half of my life, and then I was like, let me read create myself and become plant-based and eat healthier. So yeah, so I started to look at it as like that. um and yeah, so from Hidden Colors, that's when so the spiritual parts that were touched upon, that's when I started to realize that a lot of religion essentially was all very much connected. It just these energies spread out all over the world, and people would give the same or similar energies different names. And that's why sometimes we're able to, like, connect ancient Egyptian deities to, like, some of the saints in the Bible, or even some of the lois in Haiti.
Right.
Yeah.
So you had an awakening through Hidden Colors, and then everything started going from there. And so,
Yes.
what at what point was you like, you know what, I'm gonna go back to my roots and go back to Haitian voodoo.
Yeah, so took that actually happened closer to the end of last year, because prior to that, I dove straight into ancient Kemetic um spirituality. I felt very connected to Het Heru, otherwise known as Horus, otherwise known in Greek mythology as Venus. Only because my sign is Libra, and I have a lot of Venus in my chart, and so I just connected to that, and I would work with her energy. She's a mother energy, divine feminine, and I felt like, I have a direct bloodline to Haiti, the island of Haiti, and Haiti is a very powerful place, a mystical land, nation, deeply rooted. And because of slavery, that allowed for those indigenous peoples and the native peoples of Africa and West Africa to come together and create what is known as Haitian voodoo. And I started to do some research, and there are a lot of, and even aside from, your own family that's telling you that Haitian voodoo is steeped in satanic energy and it's all evil. um, Even when you're studying Haitian voodoo, and those priests and priestess known as Ungan and Mombos, they will tell you, if you don't know what you're doing, don't even approach, don't even mess with it, because it's a very strict structure, and there are rules, and you need to come with honor and respect, and you don't want to deal with things that you have no knowledge of. So I pretty much just took my time with it. I knew that eventually I would be more comfortable, um, maybe at some point practicing, but I just wanted to make sure that I knew exactly what I was what exactly what I was doing.
Right.
So it wasn't until earlier this year I had an essence reading, and I was given information through a Haitian mumbo, and she told me about two very specific laws that actually chose me at birth. And there are three different ways of having, and in other cultures such as Yoruba culture with the Orishas, there are people who are chosen as well. And it's just a matter of at the time where you're born or in the spirit world, they choose you, or there's a sense of inheritance. You have like generational spirits that are sort of with each family member as every generation enters or becomes incarnate. Um, or there are people who they call by. They like maybe find a priestess or a priest, and they spend money to receive these energies so that they can serve them in their life, and they can ask for certain things and they would receive it. um so I had this reading and I was given this information, and as soon as that happened, I kind of just dove in, because at this point I knew that there was a real connection. And it was not only a connection, this is my heritage, this is my culture. And there and just knowing, already knowing the main, I know every Haitian knows the ritual, and I guess we'll talk about this during the interview, the Bois, which is the most famous ritual that jump started the Haitian Revolution. And to know that there were sacrifices made, and there were spirits called upon, and there were requests that were made, and there was a result that ended up in Haiti being the first Black republic. And the fact that the people have, most people, I would say the general population, or those who are elite or the face of Haiti, have turned their backs or tried to repress and suppress this spirituality is very disrespectful. Because for the energy and the help, the assistance that was given during that time, I think that's I wanted to make sure that I did my part in showing respect and honor
So it's
for my
all,
heritage.
all peace, love, and light, respect, and honor to all
Hmm.
religions and whatever people believe in. So
Yes.
when I think about the Haitian Revolution, I remember during the Haitian earthquake, there was a preacher, a white preacher here in the States. I seen this on YouTube or somewhere, and he said that the Haitian people practice devil worship to free themselves from bondage and oppression. So, if you think logically about that, somebody or people that are being oppressed and killed and mauled called on their spiritual ancestors and deities to help them. And because they did
Hmm.
that, they're devil worshiping.
Yeah.
So, what is the other side
People.
doing? That's my thing. So if they're devil, if you're killing people and putting people in bondage, what are you doing? Is that God worshiping?
Exactly.
So this
It,
is where the rhetoric goes, and there's been a connotation about this, and like information and knowledge about your own spirituality. I mean, the thing is for me, like when you look at history, right? If everybody can do their own history, uh, they'll find out. Beyond the fear or whatever the connotation, just go do research, your own research. That's what Dose NYC has done. Her own research. She had to dive in deep. She's an angelic soul. She's here talking about plant based. There's nothing devil about anything. Okay. First of all,
no.
the real devil is what you create yourself. Okay, in your house, in your mind. That's really what it is. If you do not know, go do your own research. Go within inside yourself. You find out all the answers. That's all I can say. So that's why when you think about Haiti and the revolution, and then they conjure up as these spirits to free themselves, right? So this is where the connotation comes, and then Christianity came, and you look at the history of Christianity, uh, you know, even different versions like the King James version, but do your history on King James to see who he really was, to have his own version.
Hmm.
Um, you talk about you know Christianity is a very young religion, and it's taken it's what you said earlier, most of its substance from the Egyptians, Osiris and Iris. Like, you can look this stuff up. The whole sun and everything is just, and this is where the skepticism comes, because if you look at the Crusaders, so here you have African people or natives of the land that are, practicing their own spirituality, and then you have the Crusaders. Do your research on Crusaders that came with the Bible and said, if you do not worship and follow this Bible, we're going to slaughter everybody on your land. And some didn't, and their whole land got slaughtered. And some said, you know what? All right, we'll study this. So now they're studying somebody else's spirituality that has nothing to do with them. There's books taken out of it, like the Book of Enoch, for example, taken out of it. And there's so much confusion behind it all that I even talked to a preacher, and he's been a preacher for 25 years, and he told me, he's like, you're right. I've been studying the Bible for 25 years, and he still doesn't understand it. So this is where the skepticism comes. And then if you want to look up the burial sites of any character in the Bible, you can't find them. But yet again, we can go to Egypt and we can go to their tombs. I mean, so there's a lot of skepticism that comes, with Christianity. Like I said, respect. I grew up Catholic myself, so respect to Christianity, Catholicism, and all that. And just these are just the facts that's out there, and there's not nothing to argue. This is an educational piece, and you can feel free to put in any comments of anything that you know personally or whatever. But what's then we could talk about sources and whatever the case is. But so let's get back to the Haitian Revolution. So the Haitian Revolution, it was very dark. A lot of people were dying, slaves were dying, brutally murdered. So
Yeah.
the only way they feel like they can free themselves is to go back to their roots, which was
Yes.
Haitian voodoo.
Yes.
And so during this ritual, I believe you told me in the prior conversation that um, there was a misconception that they sacrificed a hog or something like that.
Yes.
In the ceremony.
Yes.
Talk
They
about that.
so the narrative goes, the narrative that most Haitians and other people who study the Haitian Revolution, the most famous and most powerful ritual, or the most famous ritual, voodoo ritual, took place in Bois Caïman, which was in a wooded area in Haiti. Um, and the purpose of that ritual was to call upon two very fierce spirits, two lois, and to help to assist and give a power to the African and indigenous um, slaves, essentially, to help defeat the French and the colonizers. And the first law was Erzuli Dantor, and she is a very intense, very fiery mother energy. She is considered to be the mother of Haiti, above all. Um, and the second energy and spirit was Ogu, or Ogun Ferai, and he's known as Ogu in West Africa. He's an energy that came from West Africa, landed in Haiti, brought over by the slaves, the soldiers. Because a lot of the male soldier, a lot of the male slaves were also soldiers, so they also used to work with Ogu back on the continent, and they were very aware of this. So this is also an energy that's coming from West Africa. um so during this ritual, there was Dutty Bookman, who was a maroon from Jamaica, sold over in Haiti, and another there was another Mumbo, Cecile Fatima. I believe I have my notes here just to make sure I'm getting the names correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
No worries.
Cecile Fatima. And so the idea was that they were going to call and invoke these spirits so that they can fight. And oh, sorry, I didn't even mention Ogu is a war god, a war spirit, really used in Africa. Just like to give like a little story, when they worked with this spirit in Africa during wars, during tribal wars, they would invoke these energies and the soldiers would invoke these energies during war, and they would make sure to do rituals to remove these energies after war. And that's just probably another conversation to as to why they were able to keep that energy balanced, and why maybe in America, when people are going off to a war and coming back with PTSD, there is this energy that's not being dealt with. So anyway, so that energy was called upon during the ritual, and there was supposed to be a black hog that was going to be offered as the main offering, blood sacrifice. Now, before, as they were going to cut open the neck of the hog, someone in the crowd, one of the participants, became possessed by another energy called Dambala. And Dambala can be compared to the serpent energy in Kundalini meditation. There's a serpent energy known as he's known to be the first Loa of the main god in Haiti. A good god, a god who lives by trees and rivers, and he deals with rebirth and birth and fertility. So he actually came into the he mounted a participant, and that man's name is Jean-Baptiste Vixamar. And he became possessed, and he said he actually took the dagger from the person who was going to slice open the hog, and he cut open two um two wounds. He cut open he cut open right by his elbows, and blood started to pour, and he told everyone to drink of his blood, and that energy would be given to the participants to help provide more power, and to provide a successful outcome for the revolution. And so he's actually known as the Haitian Jesus Christ, because as we know, the images of Jesus is him on the cross with the two slits, and the sacrifice, and the idea of rebirth, because Jesus Christ also represents a rebirthing type of energy. um so this is the story that's not really told and not really known. Some people talk about it, some people are trying to say that it's not true, but it is a real account, because his name has been immortalized. They talk about him, and unfortunately, a lot of the history in Haiti is retold by the French. A lot of the kids are getting their textbooks from France, so they're not getting the real narratives, and even if they are, they're hidden. um so the French will know it, but they'll rewrite it, and retell it the way they feel it would protect them and their image. So that was a very powerful thing, because that just reassures us that there that ritual was even more powerful and even more significant than we ever thought. It wasn't just a hog um that was sacrificed. It was an actual human being. And that is the Christ story being retold in human history, because that Christ energy always comes into human history. And because of certain religions, we think that it is only one time, but it's actually multiple times. So that is what happened. And after that ritual, then the slaves were able to defeat the French. A lot of times in bare hand combat with machetes, rocks, anything they can find, which was pretty much astounding, because you think like these soldiers had guns, and they were considered, the French army was considered the greatest army on the planet at that time. And the Haitians, and basically the Haitians at this point, because the Haitians consisted of the indigenous and the Africans. And they were known as the l'armée indigène, which is basically French for the indigenous army. So we try to give more respect to these fighters, to name them as an army, and not just slaves that were revolting. This was a very organized um, war. It was a war, essentially.
Yeah,
It was a
like
war. Yeah.
there has never been a successful revolution like the Haitian
Mm-hmm.
Revolution in 1804. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's a lot of real powerful energy. So let's
Yeah.
rewind back and explain what a luar is and how many luars they are. And um,
Yes.
I think you explained the main luars, right? The real powerful energies that people call on, but there's so
Yes.
many of them. And yes, so what
Yes.
are
There are a
luars?
lot. So Luas can be compared to Orishas, but they are not gods. They are spirits, and they're created by God. The idea is that they're created by God to help serve man and to help men and to have relationships in terms of not like, you know, it's not like relationships like romance, but it's like a connection, and it's a co-conspiring type of relationship to help men, humans deal with everyday things. Um, so Loas are categorized in about 17 different main categories. But we actually focus on the two main, or many people know two of the main categories, which are the Rada and the Petuo. And Rada are more of the calmer energies. Some Many of them are from the Dahomean cult, region of West Africa. That's in Nigeria. And Rada is, I'm sorry, and Petuo is more of the intense, more fiery energies. And a lot of them are from the island themselves. The indigenous people were working with those energies. Um, and
Are
these
you talking about the
Loas,
Tainos, like the Indians of the land?
the Tainos
Yeah,
and the Arawaks, yes.
and Iowa.
And just so we have a better understanding, a lot of our idea of what indigenous people look like are the lighter skin, straight hair, but many of them looked like you and I. They were darker skinned, they looked like Africans, when Columbus
Well,
landed in Haiti.
yeah, the thing is, there was already black people
There was black people, yes.
In the Americas
And yes, they were
before
all
any
over. They were all
redskin
over.
Indians came or anything. So yes,
Mhm.
and
Yes,
please
yes,
do your research, okay, if you want to know more.
yes. Yeah, there is a scholar that once said, Africa is our throne, but the earth is our home. So we were just everywhere. We were everywhere. We were native to the entire planet. And so going back, the Loire are so when working with the Loire, a lot of times you'll see them being identified as or represented in the form of veves. And you could put up picture one, photo one, so we can take a look at what that
Two,
looks like.
one. These are the veves.
Yes.
So this
So
symbol right
veve,
here.
yes. So veve is essentially the material, the incarnate, uh, I guess, image of what the spirit is. So usually they'd be drawn out in with cornmeal, gunpowder, flour,
So who
and
draws these
generally,
out? Like, does like the spirit come and have somebody draw them out, and this is how they know this is
so
a symbol?
traditionally, it's said that these symbols can be found in Africa on the continent, but the indigenous people were working with veves already in the island,
Mm,
on the island. And so because of tradition and culture, people know what these symbols are. So usually in preparation for a ritual, these veves will be drawn out on the ground. And this helps to higher the frequency to invite the spirit. And so
mm,
whenever
mm.
offerings are being given, they're usually placed on top of the veve. And
Got it.
so again, every loa has a veve, and So what you're looking at right now is Papa Legba, and he's the ruler of the crossroads, the ruler of gateways, and you can kind of see there's a cross in it, and there's intricate designs, and all of that is to help to increase the energy. And I don't know if whoever was aware of the Great Conjunction that just passed. It actually fell on a Monday, and Mondays are his feast days. So he actually, he's opening the gateway for us to enter into a new space. So I thought that that was very profound, and I definitely noticed that. Um but so during a ritual, usually the veves will be drawn near what's called as a potomitan, and a potomitan is usually like a large um structure, wooden structure, and you can pull up photo number 2 to see that. And it's usually a wooden structure, or it could be a tree, and the people will build a structure around the tree. And it's comparative to the Indian version, or what's known as Axis Mundi, which is sometimes you'll see it in drawings as a tree um, there's a tree that's drawn, and there are people in the ground, and there are like gods up on top. So it's supposed to represent the connection between heaven and earth. And so so what you see in the center, they actually drew the veve of Papa Legba in the center, because whenever you're starting a ritual, every ritual starts with him and it ends with him, because he's opening the gateway into the spiritual realm so that you can invoke all the other spirits. So his veve will
He's like,
always be drawn first.
wow.
Yes, his veve will always be drawn first, and then you'll see the other veves that are in on the outer part of it. I see one that's for Erzuli Freda, and there are some other ones I can't see right there, but
Right.
it looks like they're trying to invite at least 4 lois into
So
this ritual
so
here.
4 luas equals 4 different energies
4 different energies,
from the
yes.
spiritual realm, and these energies can do they specialize in certain type of things?
Yes. So these energies are they are like us. They are parts of us. When you're dealing with a problem, each one is they embody the exact energy that you're looking for. So if you're looking to gain wealth and love, you probably want to deal with Ezuli Freda, because she's dealing with luxury, and her colors are pink and gold. And then you're dealing with if you're dealing with like a mother maternal energy, you're
So you
looking to
would you
deal.
would what would you do with the pink and gold? You would wear that to invite her to you?
You would wear it. You can have a personal altar for yourself if you're looking to work with her. Again, like I said, the working with the lois are very, people are telling you to be careful, because you want to make sure you're giving the correct offerings. You're wanting to make sure that you are going to be committed to working with this loa for whichever period of time, making sure your requests are done with a pure heart. You want to approach these laws with honor and respect. So if you don't know what you're doing, it is very it's advised that you do not work with these laws, because if you are not coming to them with a pure heart, if you are not going to keep your end of the bargain, uh havoc can be wreaked upon your life. And it's not to scare people, but it's just the same way if you were to meet a stranger and someone would just come and push you, and you just be like, hey, like, like, you want people to come to you with respect the same way you would respect others. So this is exactly what these energies require when working with them.
So it seems like where people, they probably messed up in the past. They made a deal that they can hold their end of the bargain,
Mhm.
and that's where the fear comes in. And
That's where the fear comes in. And really, it's because of lack of information, especially if you're dealing with a family, like maybe a grandparent that was working with one, and you've inherited this energy, and things are not really going right in your life, or there's something not quite right. If you're lucky enough, some it will be picked up upon, and you'll see someone for help, and they'll tell you, hey, this is what was left undone, and you need to give offerings. I don't know what personally, I don't know what the resolutions are for that, but I know one of the solutions are to continue giving offerings, and to keep um making sure that that relationship is respected.
So who interacts with the Luas in a physical sense? Is that the who's that? Is like a is like a
So
preacher,
the
a
people
shaman,
who,
or like a Orishas?
yeah,
Who are
so it would be compared to like priests and priestesses. So ugans and
Ogans? Okay, so they're like
ugans are
Ogans are
considered
like
to be
preachers.
priests.
Okay,
Yes, voodoo priests, and then we have mumbos, and those are the priestesses, and they are the initiated, the ordained. They are the ones who are very they connect with the lois in a higher level. They've been probably born with the gift, or they've been working with other spiritualists to help um, progress in their abilities. They can help people, they can help heal people with the help of the law. Or some could be, used for bad to help curse people. There's a duality in everything. So this is why a lot of times whenever people come across voodoo, it's to help to rectify a problem because someone has sent negative energy their way. So usually people are seeing the more negative sides of voodoo,
so like
unfortunately.
spirituality, I tell people is just like the physical world here. You can go outside and you can deal with beautiful angels, or you could go down another block and deal with XYZ. So it's the same thing in
Yes.
the spiritual realm. So just you just have to. So I mean when when you hear stuff like this, like I can already tell that people, people are people. It's just like
Hmm.
preachers and churches are people, right? Um,
Hmm.
some it just depends who you connect with that gets you in contact with the Luas, because I'm sure there are people that monetary gains try to manipulate things, and what I mean, when they're in contact and probably do something, maybe because you didn't give them enough money, who knows, so you have to you have to be very careful who you're associating with to even get you in contact
Yes,
with these powerful beings too. You can't just go to any preacher and give your child to any like just
exactly.
because it's part of a religion. So there's levels to all this type of stuff. So you have to go. You deal with the light. You have to honor the light. And some
Hmm.
people you don't know. You just don't go talk to anybody in the street, right? So
Exactly.
um,
Yes. Yeah.
this is where
Protect yourself.
the misconceptions come. And yeah, there's power in everything. There's power in words. There's
Yes.
power in thoughts. So yeah, so obviously there's people doing this for good and bad, and I feel like the bad is being portrayed a lot when it comes to this, because
It's highlighted. It's
it's
highlighted,
highlighted
especially in Haiti.
tremendously.
And unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier, with the elites, with the government especially, there is a campaign and a mission to repress and suppress Haitian voodoo as a spirituality, and they try to keep uphold Christianity, and it's done for image reasons. And unfortunately, the only leader in Haiti that actually probably recognized Haitian voodoo was the dictator. The Probably the only dictator. I'm sure we've had maybe like some other dictators, but the major dictator was known as Papa Doc Duvalier, and he actually practiced. He was an openly practicing Haitian voodoo priest or practitioner, and he had a personal police force that worked just for him to protect him, and they were sort of his spies. And a lot of times he would hire Haitian voodoo priests to so that he would want to make sure that they were powerful. And and they would sort of wreak havoc on Haiti as well. They basically had carte blanche to do whatever they wanted in the name, to make sure, in the name of protecting the president at the time. um they weren't like crazily running amok, but they definitely, when they were when he sent someone to do dirty work, to like go after a journalist, because there was no free speech at the time. So anytime someone was speaking out against the president or anything, or anyone was saying anything that was just undesirable, they would send a tonton macoute for them. And so you're looking at the presidency, you're looking at the Tonton Macoute, and they're all associated with Haitian voodoo, and they're all pretty much like bad guys. So now you're at the point where you're like, I don't even want to mess with this. Like it's just, it's unfortunate because the only time it was ever publicized or really brought to the light was during a dictatorship. So unfortunately,
And then
that was,
people
yeah,
associate that with negativity also, obviously,
exactly,
being a
exactly,
dictator.
yeah.
So what are the positives that voodoo, I mean, does from the negative connotation so people can understand?
I would say for me personally, it gives you a sense of empowerment. It gives you a sense of pride for your culture. It makes you more aware of where you come from, that it's a beautiful, beautiful spirituality, a blended spirituality between the indigenous and the native Africans. It is an honoring, it's a story, it's storytelling as well, because a lot of the energies um, actually originated in Kemet, because as people migrate on the planet, those certain spirits, they bring spirits and that culture over to other places, and they're renamed, and the spirit sort of transforms. And for example, Esli Dontor is originally Isis, so you get to have you basically, there's a sense of connection and interconnectivity with Haitian voodoo, and it can bring healing to your life. Again, it can bring empowerment to your life. It's a science. You start to have a more of a respect for nature. You start to have more of a respect for the people that you live with. Again, one of the two rules in Haitian voodoo is honor and respect. And I feel like a lot of us, many people forget to live by that code. And in Haiti, Haitian voodoo can be very inclusive too. It's known that many people, gay people, homosexual people find solace within the Haitian voodoo community, just because it's not like, and it's unfortunate because in the Christian community, especially in the Caribbean, they sort of shun these people away. But in Haitian voodoo, there's not a there's not like in putting there's not like a pushing them in the light in a narrative of homosexuality, but there's just like, hey, like, you're a human, I'm a human, you're welcome here. So there's a sense that all are welcome, and as long as you, again, once as long as you come with honor and respect, then you are, you're good. And so I love that Haitian voodoo is not divisive. It really does bring people together. Look what it did for Haitian people during the revolution. It's so powerful. It allows you to tap in, because it is a spirituality. It allows you to tap in to your third eye. To you get to know yourself. You get to know what you're made of. Um, and yeah, it can be very, very beautiful if used wisely.
And correctly, and in the light.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes, in the
so
light.
another misconception that I hear about Haitian voodoo is like the zombies. Like,
Hmm.
explain as much as you can, because even during my research, like the zombies was something that people did through like the puffer fish. They had like
Yes,
this
yes.
poisonous thing, substance that can make people seem like they're dead for like
Mhm.
2 days or a day, and then they'll come back to life, and people will be like, "What is going on?" They had a post that was not here anymore, but the poisonous
Yeah.
concoction. That's
So
one
from
story that
my
I've heard that
Mhm.
can attribute like the real thing of
Yes.
zombies and possession and all this type of stuff. What can you explain about that
Yeah.
that you've done your work on?
So from my understanding, the idea of zombification is not what we think it is. It's not people rising from the dead like that movie Serpent in the Rainbow. It's more of a it's more of a it's more of a way of making someone docile and submissive to the person that has been, I guess, cursed. So you're not. So there is actually a zombie. People do become zombies, but it's more like the person was living and someone did something to them, and now they're sort of like just this driftless person. And I don't know too much about it, but I do know it is not to do with anyone dying and coming back to life. It is more of a spiritual, um like brainwashing, if that
Spiritual
makes sense.
attack, like
And it's a spiritual attack, and it's said that this was done to a lot of these slaves during the tribal wars when they started bringing some African slaves to Haiti. A lot of them were soldiers, so they had to actually do this ritual on them to get them to be tied up and sent over to Haiti, because you can't take soldiers, African soldiers who are dealing with the Ugon spirit, all this time, and just tell them they're going to be slaves. You have to do something to make them docile.
so
So
who did
that
that to them?
it is said that the people who, those other Africans that were
Oh,
involved
because the
in
Africans
getting
did
in,
sell the slaves.
yes,
So in order
because
to
they did
put
take
them, they
part
had to
in that.
put some work on them. So
Yeah, to make them
yeah, the
docile.
dog. Wow.
Yeah. So, and it is said, it's
Deep.
also said that during Wakaima, the main ritual before the revolution, that was an unbinding spell as well to some of those soldiers that were sort of like just like not there, and to put that Ogu spirit back on them.
Back. Wow. So they
Hmm.
had to take. Wow, that's deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Deep.
So the idea of zombification is real. It's just the semantics of it. We in America know it as, this crazy Michael Jackson thriller, like skin peeling off. Like, that's not what it is at all. It's more like a spiritual attack on someone.
And you have to. So there's a lot of spirit. Like I even heard like in ayahuasca. There was somebody that was listening talk about the experience with ayahuasca and Peru, and like the
Mm,
shamans had to do like spiritual work on people because the next village down was jealous that they was getting money, so they sent spiritual attacks on them, and they had to work with the
very real.
yeah, they had to work with like they had to let the people that were there for the ayahuasca ceremony,
Hmm.
um, let them know that they was battling all night spiritually, and they actually had
Hmm.
to do some type of exorcism off of one of the people that was there, and
Hmm.
the person didn't even speak Spanish, but they were speaking Spanish during fluently during the
Wow.
situation. So yeah, this spirituality is real. Like I said,
Very real.
um, it's just like the physical world, who you align yourself with, and your vibrations. You have a high vibration, and the highest vibration you can have is love. You're gonna be okay because that's the
Hmm.
most powerful thing here. When you start living in
Hmm.
fear and doubts and worries and anxieties and all that, those are low vibrational type of things, and you're susceptible. Like it's just like on the street. If you're scared, anybody can come and just punk you and be like, "Yo, give me your kicks" or whatever the case is, because you're scared. It's low vibrational. So you know, one thing about like especially like ayahuasca ceremonies, we have voodoo ceremonies, and even when you look at Santeria, um, everybody wears, most of the time they wear white. So what could you say
Yes.
about the colors of the ceremony itself?
Yeah. So why? So with the ceremonies, most of the initiation and ordination ceremonies, they require you to wear white. It's just a symbol of purity. It's a symbol of modesty. It's the same way when you come in, you must tie your hair. In a lot of cultures, that's a very universal thing, to tie your head to protect your hair, because we all know hair carries energy, dealing with the external forces. You're also protecting your pineal gland. You're protecting your life force. So it's a sign of respect, and it's a sign of purity. And also the color white helps to reflect energy as well. It's a reflecting color, so it helps to just keep you more protected and balanced. Yeah.
Nice. So during the ceremony, right? So you have candles lit. I've seen some of them. The candles that kind of
Mm-hmm.
invites the spirits. We have the
Mm-hmm.
symbols that invites the spirits, the gatekeeper, and
Mm-hmm.
then you have sacrifice. So you see
Yes.
people sacrificing chickens. You talked about the revolution, the Haitian Revolution, that somebody sacrificed themselves. It wasn't a hog. They
Yes.
actually sacrificed themselves
Mm-hmm.
for the greater cause of freedom for other people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So how, like, I guess it's just the different energies and the Luars. Much respect to them,
Yes. Different
that
energies.
they just
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
different things. Like one of them might want a Sprite or Coke, and the other one might want chicken or something, right? And to me, it
Yes.
seems like
Yes.
how whatever that person or like is trying to, I guess, conjure up for themselves spiritually, like, and maybe in a physical
Mm-hmm.
form. Can you? How does that
Yes.
work?
Yes, many times you're asking, so it's like life. You want something, you must pay for it. So if you are requesting a service or something, help from the loi, you must provide an offering. Some lois are okay with some offerings. Some of them would like rum, some rum, coffee, some candy. Some would like Florida water,
They
wine,
want a
sweet wine.
specific. They want a specific water.
They can be very specific. They can some, yeah. I would just say, just to be safe, they are very specific. Some like traditional foods. Some like coconuts. Some like fried
Just
goat.
a variety of
That's a
things. So
variety of things. And some would sometimes and sometimes the laws will require a blood sacrifice. So they require a blood sacrifice, and usually it's a chicken or a goat. Very rare. I mean, the first time I've ever heard of a human sacrifice was for the Haitian Revolution, and that was a recent uncovering, because again, that was um a suppressed narrative, because they say a black hog, but was there a black hog? Maybe there was a black hog, but definitely somebody became possessed and sacrificed themselves during the ritual. But again, and also the offerings, a blood sacrifice is such a powerful sacrifice. Blood is life, is a life force, the life force of that entity. Essentially a life, spirit. So uh every law is different, and depending on how intense, how great the request is, and again, what the law requires, is how you would make your sacrifice,
I
or
guess that's
what
what
your offerings would
I
consist
guess
of.
I guess that's what kind of gets people a little off, like, to go that route, because some people don't even believe in killing animals, but yet again, you're going to ask
Yeah.
an energy, for something serious, and what they want in return is a dead pig or something, like the blood.
Yes, it would be the blood. It would be the blood. Some don't deal in animal sacrifices.
It
um
just depends on the energy. So
I personally believe it depends on the person who's doing the ritual, what is called through them, because a lot of times the law will speak through them, and they'll ask for what's required, or traditionally speaking, they'll know what's required. So it really all depends. It really all depends.
do you think they could be like, just depending who you go? Say somebody's desperate, they go to a gun, right? And they're like, "Yo, I want
Yeah.
this," and you feel like this manipulation that could be involved even before the luau? Like, oh, they really want this $5,000 with a dead,
There's so much of that
like a
going
dead
on. There's
squirrel.
so
They want a dead squirrel, $5,000 just to make it more like. Do you think there's stuff like that going on? So, like, hey, well, you don't want it, and then
Yeah, this is why a lot of times when you're doing works, you need to, especially for those who are living in the States, the Haitian diaspora, it's important to have people on the ground in Haiti, people who know who's actually worth going to for help, spiritual work. Um,
so it's just like
and
anything in general. Like, even doing your taxes, you want to go to somebody that's trustworthy.
You could definitely, if you're, I know, I know my parents will tell me a lot of people that they know who have gone to spiritualists to get houses, to get wealth. And usually the sacrifice or the trade-off is not felt until later on in life. It could be a situation where the relationships will never go right, and we could always chalk it up to like circumstance, happenstance, etc., but we can't help to notice the patterns. So that's why, that's another thing, when you're asking for certain things, you have to be prepared for the consequences, because like these are not small requests. You're asking for wealth, and you're asking for huge things, like things that can actually affect your life and generations. So that's just one thing. And again, it's not to scare people, it's just to make people aware. Like, it's like anytime you want something, there's an offering, there's something that needs to be done. You want to be successful, you go to school, you go through the years of college, you put in the work, you have to give something. So
Right.
the laws are not going to just give you the world for nothing. There's
Right.
something, there is a consequence for everything. And I think that we, because of fear, and because of I guess it's like, oh well, why do they have to take something for me to get something? Well, that's just how it is. You either want it or you don't.
It's
It's
energy.
not to
It's
be
like an
understood.
energy exchange. Like, yo, you want
It's an
something?
energy exchange.
Yeah.
It's an energy exchange, and that's just the reality of it. So that just needs to be understood before you really go into asking for major things.
Right. So, your parents, right? Because you didn't
Hmm.
grow up like this, and then you had like your own awakening through college.
Yes.
How are they taking your curiosity, or you going back into old traditional things?
Okay, so when you are, because they didn't necessarily grow up in it, but they grew up around it, there is the understanding that this is a very real uh practice, and they've seen people affected by it. And usually it's just because, like, with this, it's always just such a mysterious, dark thing. So they never really uh, looked at it as a possible route in getting things done. But what I would say, and I probably wouldn't say this for my parents, but just generally for all Haitians, and we can just get the idea, because I don't want to put my parents on blast, but like, most Haitian people will renounce Haitian voodoo in public.
Because there's a
However,
negative connotation around it.
there's a negative, yes, and also there's also the fear of the soul, because when you start practicing Christianity, you're told not to look at it doesn't, Christianity doesn't really allow space for other
For
spiritualities,
anything
but
else.
they say spiritualities allow space for Christianity and everything. So when you are Christianized and you are Haitian, it's such a conflict, because you're living in a country where this practice is so real, and you actually see things happening before your eyes. You hear of people flying, you hear of people turning and transforming at night. Like, I've heard stories among so many different Haitian people of people turning into animals. And I'm not even joking. Like, this is not a joke. Like, this is like for real, for real. There are people who don't have recollection of this. And that's for a whole other story. But if you grew up in a place where this is happening, you understand that this is real. So I would say they're the first the as they're I would say, as far as they'd go in terms of uh interacting with Haitian voodoo, is if there is a spiritual problem with someone that they know or of themselves. Because you'll know. Usually you'll have someone in the family that has is a clairvoyant, or someone who, or yourself. You'll know yourself. You'll know when you're being spiritually attacked. Like, things are not just not going right. Certain illnesses are not appearing normally. Things are not like, things are manifesting, and it's just odd. So you probably seek you find a spiritualist that can help you, and they'll confirm that something is wrong and you need to deal with it. And that's usually when a Haitian person would deal with deal with Haitian voodoo and participate in their own healing through that type of spirituality, because it's just understood you can't handle it any other way. There's no amount of, and some people think, a lot of people, especially those who are deeply rooted in their Christian faith, and they're just like, it's almost like, I've evolved, I became Christian, and I'm not looking back. And there's so many times where people like that and their family members are being attacked, and others are telling them, I'm telling you, this is a spiritual attack. You need to go handle it. They say, handle it. You need to handle it. And they say, I'm not turning back. And people pass, and it will be like, you need to handle your business. You need to go back and handle it the traditional way. And it's just like, they don't want to, it's like a, it's it's what was done to us when they gave us the religion, unfortunately. And again, I know we're not attacking Christians, but it's unfortunately, everything has a solution. And if you're being spiritually attacked, especially within the Haitian culture, and another person is through with laws and these energies, you need to do it within that within that space, within that construct. So that's really how I would say my parents would view it. It's feared. It's kept far away. It's almost like this doesn't exist. But when it comes time to handle things, things will get handled.
Right. So, what did they say about you doing it? Did they have any type of fears, or they like how they go about it?
They definitely had a fear. I try to be as transparent with them about my personal experiences, certain dreams I've had, um, with Loaz coming into my dreams. It's more of a fear. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening to you. You're
And
so young.
what type of dreams are those?
It's dreams, messages from them, um certain, and even sometimes it'll be certain laws that I'm not familiar with, and everything in the dream points to them, and I would have to like do research after to find out
All the
the elements, the attributes that are associated with them, and it will all just be hidden. And um and sometimes the days that of their feast days, I would have the dreams on their feast days, so I would know it's literally them. And it's really just very like subtle messages, like you're on the right path, or and sometimes it's like no
like
talking
spirit
to this
guides.
energy. Yes, yes, and that's really what it is. And especially when you are someone who is chosen, because again, they have different people who deal with the laws in different ways. You have the inheritance, where I mean, someone in your family was dealing with them and it's been passed on to you. You have chosen, where people will the laws will choose you upon the time that you're born. And then you have those who pay for it. They seek spiritualists to pay money, and the spiritualists will give them the law to stay with them in their lifetime. And so a lot of times that never works out, because now it's like, okay, why am I being summoned to work with you? What am I doing here? You now must be giving me off you must give me offerings. And those are the people that have to give offerings constantly, because you haven't organically bonded with this law. It's not an organic bonding, it's a payment. So it's like it's like having an employee almost. It's like, I'm not with you because I like you. I'm here with you because you asked me to do something, and I'm only here as long as you're giving me offerings. And if you don't give me offerings, then it's going to be a problem. That's literally how that goes sometimes. But yeah, that's how. So going back to the dreams, that's how that's. So in me trying to communicate with them, they sort of take it in, and it's more of like it's a fear, because they don't know what comes with it. They know, like, you sometimes people become possessed. I have not reached that point. Like, that is I'm still evolving in my spirituality when it comes to Haitian voodoo. And and um and just to go back for those, and I wanted to address this actually at the beginning, that the word voodoo comes from West Africa, and it means spirit, and it comes from voodoo and the Dahomian tribe, and it's a beautiful word, and I think that it's just been soiled and tainted.
So they
So
put
every
a
time I
negative
say,
connotation around the
they
word.
did.
Divide.
Yes,
Yeah, and
yes,
they actually mean
yes.
spirit.
So exactly. So they definitely fear for not even because I already kind of left the Christian church. So they already was trying to get me to go back, and they're like, you need to save your soul. But then this kind of like, oh my God, well, if you're already in it, then we just want you to be careful, and we don't want you to get hurt, and we don't want you to end up as like a mumbo that is single for life. Because there's this image that a woman who actually start practicing are like basically their lives are basically attached completely to the law, and they can't live the
So
lives that they want.
it sounds like a nun to me.
It's yeah, they look at it like that, but it's not, especially when it's a situation where you're chosen. There's nothing required of me. There is nothing. All I personally do for for them in my own space, because when you do honor them on their feast days, it's a very personal relationship. It's done in private. So I say thank you. I honor them. I say thank you, and that's all. That's all that's needed. It's just for you. You're here. You've literally been with me since I was born. You've looked out for me in ways that I cannot comprehend. And so I will say thank you for that and honor you. And there's no pulling and tugging of how your life path will be, because your life is your life. And they're not God. Again, they're laws. They're not deities. They're not gods, but they're spirits that are sent to this earth, to this plane, to help us. And they help us in different ways. They help us, they come to us in our dreams. Sometimes when you're having a conversation, they'll just be around and they'll throw a thought in someone's head that you're talking to, and literally something you probably prayed for, you're thinking about, is being communicated through that person. That person's not being possessed, but that person is literally translating a message that you probably needed to hear. So they come to you in so many different ways. The same way, again, like you said, with spirit guides, angels, the master numbers. You'll see like subtle things, but you have to be open and aware to it.
That's a fact, spiritually.
Hmm.
So have you done a ceremony yourself?
I have not done a ceremony. No,
That's that next.
I've been taking my time. I've been
Okay,
taking my time when it comes to this, because it is very delicate, and you need to make sure that you're in a space where you can trust the people that you are participating in the ceremony with. I believe we spoke about this over the phone. There are times where there are certain malicious spiritualists that can try to take the laws that walk with you away from you, and because they're more powerful, you're not aware of it. They can actually just draw them out of your essence and in your path. And um I've been told to just be cautious by my spiritualist, my advisor, and so I don't participate in any um rituals. If I ever feel like whenever I do feel comfortable later on in life, I would want to do that, probably in Haiti, and maybe tap in. But the thing is, it's difficult because you don't know which family members are actually participating, and if they are, it's probably done in secret. So unfortunately, my entire family is very religious, and so it would be very hard for me to actually go back. But I know that I will be led to wherever I need to be led. It will be shown to me. I'll be guided, and it'll be all in divine timing. I'm not rushing it, because I just really started getting passionate about even just dismantling the notions of Haitian voodoo. You know, that's just for me. Like, and even this interview, this conversation is very healing for me too, because I don't get to talk about this. This is like, I feel like every day I'm learning, and I'm just like doing for myself, because even friends, sometimes they don't really want to talk about it. Cousins, they're not really trying to talk about it, or maybe it's just not something that is again, it's the fear. So you always don't want to
and
be the person to freak
people
people
fear
out, you
and
know.
people fear what they don't really understand too. So
Yes.
that's where the
Hmm.
negative connotation of among anything that somebody just does not know and what's presented to them.
Yes.
Um, so on that note, you know, I thank you for coming on to Open Minds and talking about something that people don't usually like to talk about. And I commend you, and I know that you're gonna do great on your spiritual journey, and you're finding out the
Thank
truth
you.
and knowledge and wisdom to help serve you and your life purpose here on this plane. And this is just
Thank you.
information and knowledge and wisdom and stuff that people just can go do their own research, and really dig in deep if this is something you really want to know about. There's more on this plane than we all presented to us, and there's
Mm-hmm.
respect to everybody, but there's motives, you know what I mean, and for people to have entities to have things go their way. So this is just to open the
Mm-hmm.
minds of what's out there, especially something like Haitian voodoo and other spiritualities like uh, Santeria and and Yoruba, all that type of
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So anything else you'd like to add to tell the people to close off on Haitian voodoo and their spiritual journey, and we go, moving on.
I guess I would just say, like you just said, do your research. Um, Come at it with a healthy curiosity. Be open minded. Some things, some images that you'll see will look pretty bizarre, just because it's not what we grew up with. It's not what was. It was taboo, you know. And if you look at it with a healthy perspective, then you'll start to respect it. And once you start to respect it, you'll start to learn more about it. And then you'll see again how scientific Haitian voodoo is, how elemental it is, and how empowering it is. So even if it's not something that you want to practice in, it's definitely something that maybe as a Black person will help to add more pieces of the greater puzzle of our history, so that you can get to know yourself more, on this plane, and on your spiritual journey. So
Exactly,
yeah.
metaphysical, and yeah, it's just all, and everything done here is in the light and for knowledge base only. It's not to attack
Yeah.
anybody and their beliefs. So much respect to all the religions, and definitely much respect to all the Loas, and peace, love, and light to everybody. On that end, this is Lingo Ink. Make sure you go on lingoinkboutique.com, cop your latest gear. Right now, I'm wearing the On Guard line. Right now, we have all the zodiac signs that are going to be out. Everybody's asking me about them. They're slowly but surely coming out. I have Aries out, Leo's coming. Everybody else is coming. Sagittarius is out. We got the kicks and all that. Make sure you follow our beautiful soul guest here, plant-based blogger slash author at DOOSENYC on Instagram. She's coming out with that book, and you're in the Brooklyn area, right?
Yes,
In the Brooklyn
Brooklyn.
area, we're changing up the game, the culture to so we could be at peace and harmony as it was intended to be in the first place, for not
Yes,
only ourselves but our communities, our families, and the world. And that's how we're gonna move right now. Please give her a round of applause for being on the show. And until the next episode, peace, love, and light to you all.
peace, peace.
Either they love you or they hate you, or they gon' judge you. It is what it is. 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 Being your own, living your truth. All these egos and pride got something to prove. I got my diva inside, cooped in a coop. Keep your feelings inside. I do what I do. I move how I move. Choose what I choose. Third eye's active in motion. Magnificent views. There's too many options, so much to choose. What is for me is just not what's for you. Vice versa. Let it all go. Most of it's not worth it. Just stay focused on your goals and life purpose. Be a student of this life and never stop learning. Never stop learning. Nah, there's some shit you just gotta accept. Your reality is created by the thoughts in your head. You.
Stay focused.
My mama told me
and kick them doors wide open.